All right, it's time for us to implement some error message displaying. Right now, if something goes wrong, we don't really let the user know. So for example, if I try to navigate to slash tasks like one, this, I'm in a logged out state. This is not great. It's trying to load a task, but it's just not working. So we would want to display some kind of error message for us. Now, if I do this, uh, we don't even try to make a login attempt, or any kind of like other call attempt, which I think is good. Like that's a good sign. But I want to display something out here. So I don't have too much time this morning before I have to end. So let's just see how far we can get. So first of all, inside of the store, I'm gonna want to have I want to have our error message. I've thought about it, and I'm gonna do the same thing we've done with username and token. We're just gonna have a string, and it's gonna be empty by default. So we'll do pub error message, and you're gonna be just in a string. We implement default for ourselves, so we have to now handle this too. So we're gonna do our error message is gonna be a string. Actually, we could just do default like that. Okay, so now we're gonna have just an empty string inside of there. Next up, I want to display the error message in a nice way. You know what? How about for this default error message, let's actually give it a real string. So a string from, and we'll just say, I am an error. I like this just right now because it will, I won't have to trigger an error to be able to see, hey, is it looking good or not? So then where do I going to put this? Probably in the main library here. I want to have an error message display below the nav bar, but above everything else. So it would be essentially right here. And we're probably going to want to create some kind of organism for it, either organism or molecule. Maybe a molecule because it's really going to be just text with a little bit more wrapped around it. So let's create an error message here. Mod error message and a brand new component. Been a while since we've done this. So we're going to bring in Yew.rs. We'll have, this is definitely going to be a styled component. There it is, styled component, error message. Properties. I don't necessarily know if we want this to have any properties. I kind of like the idea of having the error message always there, and then it will just sort of fade in and out depending upon the state of the store. So we may not need any. All right, so let's start with we'll have a div. And then for this div, we could then have, I guess we'll just have our BB text. Let's see if the default text works for us. And let's go take a look at our BB text and see what this needs. All right, properties. Okay, so we have obviously text. This is going to be the error message. So we need to bring that in right away. So this is going to be the actual, I guess we'll just call this the message itself. And we're going to use store. Okay, bring in our store type. Bring in a state. We'll map. State dot error message. Clone that out and unwrap our default. Okay, so that gives us our message now. And we want this to display. So text is just going to be a reference to that message. Actually, no, you have to need a full string. So you're just going to be the message. We can also check to see if we should display this at all with an if statement here. So if message dot is empty, if it's not empty, then go ahead and display this. Okay, so we have text, a data test. Let's call this error. A text type, normal text, I think is going to be fine for this. And a class and a color. Let's just try this and sort of see how it feels. So loading you up. Oh, you know what? It'd be good to actually call this in and use it. So use components. This is a molecule. Error message. And this will go right here. All right, you're happy, and here we are. I am an error. So first of all, I want this centered. So let's set ourselves up some styling. So let style sheet. Okay, so I'm thinking we're just going to use a for the text, so like text align center. We'll do a background red on this too. Let's do it for this div here. So class equals style sheet. And you should be happy now. And okay, our error is now centered. The color here is like, this is not really obvious. I kind of want to have this big giant red bar to be like super obvious of that it's an error. So let's also give a background color of just red. Let's see how that feels. Okay, that is extremely easy to see that something is wrong and we don't want it to be here anymore. Okay, great. So after it's been set, this component loads and refreshes. So maybe we can do something like a use effect, and if the error message exists, we can use a timer to then reset the error message to be nothing. I think that's sort of like the idea of where we want to go with this. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. So we're going to use a use effect. So we can get this when there's a refresh. So let's see, a callback. We're going to probably use a move on this. And at the very end, we're going to have that closure sort of like to end it up. We may have to like handle the timer down here too. We'll see. Okay, so in our use effect, this is going to happen every time that the thing refreshes, meaning that we need to have the actual message. Let's go ahead and let's throw this use effect inside of a block. And then we can just clone the message in here. That message equals message.clone. Then we're going to, in use effect, have this here. Okay, so what do we want to have happen? If the message exists, then we want to start a timer, but then we need to only have one timer, don't we? So we need to then also store a we need to store the ID of the timer, just like if nothing else, to be aware that we have started a timer in the past, because then otherwise we'll like try to do this multiple times, which I don't think is a good idea. But let's sort of see. Let's just play it by ear, see how it works. So we do use effect. It's going to hit it's going to hit this on refresh and first load. It refreshed because message has been set to a string. Well, first of all, we want to only do this if the message is not empty. So if not, message dot is empty. Okay, so that's the first thing. If the message isn't empty, then now what? So the message isn't empty now. Time for us to set a timer. Well, we need now to have a state of the timer ID. So I don't actually need this here anymore. Let's give ourselves some room. Let timer ID is going to be a use state. Our initial function is going to be, we'll just set this to 0. I believe the timer ID can't actually be 0, so that should be fine. And I can't remember exactly what it is. We may have to tell it exactly what type of number it's going to be too. Okay, so okay, timer ID. I could make this a none or a sum. That could potentially also work here. That might be good. How about this? So we'll do a you're a none. And I think we're gonna have to tell you exactly what type you're gonna be, or are you gonna figure it out? It might figure it out as we set it. So if our timer ID is none, this should work because I'm dereferencing or dereferencing automatically with this dot. So then we're going to go into the if statement. Okay, so if the timer is none, then it's time for us to set a timer. So we're going to do let ID is equal to, all right, so we're going to use glue timers. Let's do callback style here. I think that'll be fine. Timeout. And a new one. How long should this be for? Let's do like 10 seconds. So 10,000 milliseconds. Then our closure. Let's see. What are we gonna do? We want to set the error message to nothing. That's all. So that means we do need to move. We also need a dispatch so we can then reset the error message, which means we need to go into the store and have a hub function reset error message. We're going to have a dispatch, nothing else. Okay, store dot error message equals now we just want a I guess we'll just do the string new. That should work. Okay, back in here. We do need a dispatch. So we're going to use a store. Use store, please. Okay. Then inside we'll have our store type. Get the dispatch and clone this out. Okay, so now that we have dispatch, we move it into here, and then we have to move it into here, which means that right before this one, we're going to clone the dispatch again. So that dispatch equals dispatch.clone. Okay, so now we have access to inside of here, which means we need to use store, reset error message, pass in that dispatch. That should now remove it after 10 seconds or so. Let's do 3 seconds right away. Just sort of less waiting. We're impatient. Now this is the timer, I believe, the dispatch. This is nested if block, if message. Okay, so yeah, let's here, you can fix that for us. Quick fix. Now what? More? Oh, there we go. I love being able to just write out the logic the way it makes sense to me and then have Rust Analyzer or Clippy, I'm not sure which one in this case, just fix it for me and make it better. Okay, so we get, now this is a timeout, so we now need to tell it I want to forget it. And now we get the ID of the timeout here. And then before I do anything else, we want to now take this message, which this is going to go into here. So we also need to clone it again here. And we're going to do a message.set. And it's going to be set to this ID. Now this is an I32, so it needs to be a sum of an ID. Now, are you going to figure out what the type is? There's an associated function. Okay, so we have message is empty. Sorry, timer ID. I wanted the timer ID. So we have our timer ID here. I need to clone you inside of here. Set timer ID equals timer ID dot clone. Do it again. So after here, but before this one. So not message. I want this to be timer ID. There we go. Now you become timer ID. And we set you to be some timer ID. Okay, excellent. Okay, so, oh, this one doesn't need to be cloned. That's fine. Let's think about this. We have the use effect. Okay, so if this happens, set the ID, then we forget about it, and then we set this ID here so that we know the next time we come through, if the message is not empty, but we do have a timer ID, then we're not going to run this, and we're going to wait for this to happen. When this happens, store a reset error message, we should also reset the timer ID. Okay, so we should then do timer ID set to a none. Move value. I totally needed to clone you here, didn't I? Was it there or is it in here? Oh, I want to move. Do we need to clone you in here again before I use this? Because, oh yeah, I do. I need to do a different one. So like we have the timer ID that I'm going to use here. So I need like a timer ID equals this cloned. I almost want to now do here another block. Let's do one right here. This dispatch can go inside of here. Okay, so timer ID is going to move into here. We're going to clone it into this block, and then we're also going to have it available here. Oh, but never mind, because we need this ID unless I do something like let ID equals out of here. So we grab our ID and then we return the ID from the block. Then we can use the timer ID set here. Okay, that works. Now, let's see if this is set for us. So if I hit refresh, we get absolutely nothing. Let's go ahead and reset my local storage because I think it's already removed the error message, right? Error message is empty. So delete all, hit refresh. Okay, we see the I am error. It disappears. I still have interactive capabilities, so I have not created an infinite loop, which is really nice. I wouldn't be able to do anything at all if I had created an infinite loop. Okay, so excellent. So we can now turn this back to like 10,000 or something like that. So after 10 seconds, we want to delete the error message from the store. Okay. And let's see. This component is always going to be here for us. So therefore I don't need to really worry about that. I think that's where we're going to leave it off right now. I want to run our Cypress test to see if this is happy. Oh, we need to run the server too. Wait, I am running a server. You're not finding localhost 8080? It's right here. Try it again. I ran Cypress before the server was started, so it was a little bit confused. And let's see if everything passes. Okay, so we have an error in, that's actually in the filter. So we'll have to fix that later. For our error message here, so it's trying to find error and it wants it to, it visits one, it wants it to be visible. Oh, but it also wants it to have a very specific error message. You must be logged in to view tasks. Oh, okay. So I think what we're going to do next time is actually make it be the appropriate errors. So that's going to be basically detecting when we're not logged in and trying to reach like task one, for example, and then put this error message in the Yew.rs store. That will have the error message display here, and then it's going to wait for 31 seconds, and then try again. So that'll be a 30-second wait time, and then make sure that that message is gone after that. So that is what we're going to do in the next video. Look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.